Hi, hello, and welcome. I don't know. How's everyone doing on the day? I'm just checking some real quick because I think I did 2-8. No, I did 2-9. Okay, all right. I was like, I think I put the wrong date on yesterday. So today we're gonna talk a little bit. Excuse me. Or I'm gonna talk a little bit. Or we will talk a little bit today. I forget to turn this one on. That's why I'm like this instead of like that. It's too much. All those boxes, those are my mama's. They ain't mine. I ain't have to throw her under the bus like that. Don't worry about the boxes. Mind your business. Um. So yesterday, in the process of that video, and the email came in at 10:10. I didn't realize it was 10:10 until I sent the um I sent in a screenshot to my friend, like, because I told her that I was like, I feel like I woke up with a direction, and then I got that email that was completely left field, and that's when I was like, oh, look at devil energy. But then I was like, it's not necessarily devil energy. It ain't gotta be. Um, so I just attended the webinar for gene therapies for rare and apparently ultra rare um, diseases. And it was so affirming in so many ways that, because as I was talking about, um, when I'm like, I decided that the world is going to reflect me instead of me being a mirror and a reflection of the world. Um, it's just as simple as like there are things that I'm holding on to that will not budge. Like the time, the season of us not caring about each other or being more, and it's like, why is it that like bringing up an issue that people are facing is labeled as divisive when what actually causes division is not addressing those disparities? Maybe it's a little uncomfortable for some people who don't necessarily have to deal with it, but I wouldn't label that as inherently divisive. Me saying, "Oh, you hurt my feelings," and you feeling attacked to the point where you're not taking responsibility and accountability for what you've done, but you want to attack, or like you bite back because someone brings something to your attention. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so I got an email and it was like, hey Patrick, like, I came across your resume, I think you'd be a really good fit for this. Like, here's the position, here's all the details, reply with your CV and resume and then we'll start talking. And the job was very much so not the position, not what I woke up that day wanting to do. I was like, I know what I want to do now, and that was not it. And that's why I was like, oh, it's devil energy. But then I was like, let me like calm down because it might actually be something worth looking into. And I believe that. Like, I'm not. Maybe that's something I need to learn to do. Hey, Mimi, how you doing today? Good afternoon, right? It's the afternoon time. For you, it is. For me, it almost is. I'm doing well today. I'm doing well. I got some stuff to talk about, and it's how annoying choice is. That's one. It's been not annoying. I don't want to say annoying. How fortunate I am to experience the burden of choice. There are a lot of things in life that I never would have pursued because it was outside of my comfort zone and it was outside of the small, tiny, tiny little box that I didn't like it in the box, but ooh, oh, his birthday is today. Happy birthday to him. I already forgot. There's a lot of stuff happening today. There's a career fair today, a virtual career fair. I was like, I could attend, but I'm not feeling it. So I woke up yesterday morning after everything I talked about the day before yesterday, and I was like, I got this gene therapy thing on Wednesday. I'm so excited for it. And so yesterday I woke up excited. I was recording live. I got an email at 10:10. Um, and then I was like, "Ooh, this is devil energy." I don't think it was. It wasn't. I was just being a little over dramatic. Hey, look, there's a strength card. Oh, with the tiger on it. I read this one. I don't remember who it is, but she had the tiger. Today is a portal day too. Oh, snap. And so in the email, the job is something that I wasn't at all, like it wasn't at all within my like, oh, I want to do that. But I'm no stranger to, you know, I don't want to say a change in direction. I'm no stranger to a change in direction, a shift in direction. And I look at the salary, I'm like, okay. It's telecommute. Like there's a potential to telecommute, which I'm also super about because I want to travel and work. And if I can telecommute, I can work from anywhere. 1010 mirror, and guess what? Today's signature is. Oh, I'm so rusty on the signatures. No, it can't be the White Wizard. Uh, it ain't Red Moon. It's not Red Moon, right? Well, we just had White the other day. We just entered. You said it was red, and that was maybe 2 days ago. I don't remember the wheel, so it's either yellow or blue. It's White Mirror. Oh well, that makes sense. I feel like you set up the answer, and I just overthought it. I overcomplicated the whole thing. Guided by the White Mirror. Ooh, I might have to read what that is. I'm gonna have to refresh on that one. Who's a? Oh yeah. Okay. All right. I was like White Mirror. That sounds familiar. It's like, oh yeah, that's why. Okay. Um, the pay was really, really, really nice. Honestly, the pay is over twice what I was expecting. And not expecting, because I was expecting a little more. But then because of some other situations that in that one company that I told y'all that I was like, it's not a fit for me. And so like that lowered my expectations. So this was double what it had been lowered to. It was still more, like considerably more than I was initially thinking. They have multiple locations. I looked up one of the locations, and the location is perfect. And it had that telecommute option. And I'm like, what do I do? Because it's not. And it was a moment of questioning, I guess. And that's why I'm like, sometimes I get, they say wishes may bring problems such that you regret them better that though than to never get them. And like because I've worked through a lot of the stuff that I've worked through, I don't have a lot of the same hangups that I used to when it comes to making a decision. But since that's the case now, it's like now there are things that I consider or things that are options that never would have been options in the past. And I feel like there have been so many points, and it's been my journey to choose, but like actually choose. And so I'm looking at it, and location, I cannot disclose the location of interest. I mean, there's a few places I'm looking at, um, but it's like so the location is perfect. The pay is better than I thought. The work would be kind of challenging, but something that I could totally do. It's in an area that I haven't fully explored yet, and I had this feeling of like it's like I'm gonna something's gonna be requiring a lot of me moving forward. And there was one friend I reached out to, my realistic friend, the Libran friend, the one I've been talking about a little more lately. And I was like, hey, like, can you call me later? Because he's like 11 and a half hours ahead of me. So he was like, yeah, I'll call tonight. I didn't get that call last night, which is fine because it's something that I need to decide. And so I'm looking through it and I'm like, okay, well, this is some of the stuff that I wanted. The location, like I said, the telecommute option and the pay. But like, what's really important to me right now? Because there are a lot of jobs hiring for all kinds of pay all over the place that have telecomute options. But what's, I guess, most important to me is the nature of the work and the the impact and the benefit. And so at first I was like, no, because it's not what I wanted to be doing. And then it was like, well, just because it isn't exactly what you were expecting doesn't mean that it's not the next move for you. And I was like, that's true. Everything I talk about, right? It may not come in the way that you're expecting it, but it may be it. Um, yeah. And like it's a company that I like it's not a biopharmaceutical company, so I wouldn't necessarily have a reason to know that it exists. Um, but I mean, depending like on what they do, it might be, I don't know. Yesterday, I went to bed last night. I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll look into it. It wouldn't hurt to try, right? And then today I woke up and I was sleeping good today. I didn't want to get out of bed. So I didn't. I did. I know. I know. That's why I was like, this is devil energy. It ain't devil energy. It ain't probably. I'm just playing. It's just, a little bit of put your money where your mouth is, or a little bit of I mean, but when I said it because it's things that I've already been experiencing. And it happened, I guess I forgot about that. Last May. It's when I saw the email. I was ignoring them because I was like, this sound like a made up university. The reason why I don't know the name of the university it's because it was in like Abu Dhabi. And I was like, oh. And then I asked my friend about it. I was like, have you heard of this university? He was like, yeah. And they had a medical school program. It was about like a scholarship, so it could have been potentially paid for. And medical school, it was part of my initial plan, but that changed because a lot of stuff changed after I went into college. But I was like, well, maybe since this opportunity is coming, maybe I could take it. Maybe this is it. But in that moment, I decided that it wasn't. Now, that was pre cataract surgery. Post cataract surgery, I am sort of thinking about higher education. Maybe not necessarily a PhD, but at least a master's. And it's like, um, I don't know. It's a little seven of cups, but not really, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not. I don't think it's going to be the impact that I was wanting, and the impact to me is the most important part. And so, after the conference today, I am back where I was, where I woke up yesterday morning, and it was so patient centric. It was so extremely refreshing. So extremely refreshing. And some of the concerns that I have or would have if I do get into the biopharmaceutical or pharmaceutical industry is that, like, everything we do is actually to help people and it's not just to make money and it's not to profit off of people who have no other choice, because like that's not an energy that I'm here for. Which is one of the reasons why I decided not to work for that one company, even though they put me right where I wanted to be for less than I wanted up front. but in the arena that I thought it would take me longer to get to. Oh, excuse me. And so that's kind of sort of been my experience. And sometimes making choices is like, ooh, like I'm not a huge materialistic person. Like money doesn't really move me too much. But like, I mean, that would be nice. And it's not that I'm getting more materialistic uh in the past year. For me, it's so extremely interesting because like a year ago today, I feel like I've done a little bit of a 180. A little bit. Not a complete 180, but before I was like, well, as long as I'm like happy and taken care of, then the money doesn't matter. Now I'm like, the money doesn't matter, but there are certain things that I want to be able to do, and the money would help me do them. I don't know. Well, I always like, not always, but most of the time I'm manifesting something, it's for the benefit of other people. Um, because like everything, like I like to experience things with other people. Like experiencing things with other people enriches my experience of that thing. Um, so I kind of always have others in mind. I need to honestly be a little bit more selfish. Yeah, I ain't trying to scuba dive, but vacations. I want at least one a year and a nice one. Oh, ooh, what is this? Okay, I need some clarification before I even read these. Oh, um, I'm gonna just leave these on the table for now, and I'm gonna keep talking about it. So yeah, basically that was it. Um, and now I kind of don't know. I don't know what I want to do. Honestly, I do know, but it's difficult. Oh, okay. See, that's why the shadow came out. Okay, so the Weaver and Shadow came out, and I was like, what the freak is this about? The Weaver was mentioned yesterday when Fate came out because it's the Weaver who spins that yarn of Fate, and then the Shadow is here. So as I'm sitting in that webinar, thinking about, oh my gosh, like this is the level of impact that I want to have, this conversation, and that's when, like, to reiterate, when I said that the world is going to reflect me, this is one of the changes that I wish to see in the world as far as the healthcare slash medical industry being more patient focused. And that, like, they talked about it. They were like, when we're creating these things, we need to integrate the patient at every step. And then like they're like, like with certain illnesses and diseases, especially if they progress rapidly, there is a pressure to like want to have a solution as soon as possible, but it's better to have an effective solution rather than something that is rushed. And she ended there were three speakers. The third one, she was more in the space of like representing patients and the patient side of clinical trials and research and stuff like that. And she ended with a quote from Martin Luther King. It was something like, there are finite disappointments, but we must not lose infinite hope, or something like that. I don't know. I literally just heard it. I took a little note because in the first girl, the one who was like, we need to be integrating the patients and we need to be like, and it talked about decentralization and how um, there are certain things that have to be sort of centralized, certain things that you need a professional for. But because of COVID, the whole industry is changing, and now there's more like digital health options. Oh, and there's more like outsourcing of certain things. So like if you didn't have to travel to go to a specific site, for things that you can do closer to you and then just have all the data sent over. And how it's just like how the whole field is in a space to be more progressive now because of the need for the vaccine. A lot of the old sort of timelines and ways of doing things kind of sort of fell through the cracks. Not fell through the cracks, but she was like, we can be creative and still maintain scientific integrity, and that's what they're doing. But she said one thing she put on her slide, it was like alignment equals catalysis. I was like, oh, I need to say that. And another thing she said, she was like, there was a question of, are we proposing that we're doing something the way that's been done before only because it's always been done that way? Right? Like, is that the only way that we're doing something the way that we're doing it? Because, like, well, it's always been done this way. And she was like, it's time to be a little innovative. I ain't mirroring out nothing. I'm holding the line. The world is mirroring it back to me. I'm just playing. Sorry. But that's what I mean. It's nothing like, I don't know. It's just holding the line. It's a manifestation that I hold regardless of what situation circumstances in the world looks like. And I try to align myself with energies of progression, of forward movement, very Aquarian sort of energies. And right now, the modern ruler of Aquarius is in Taurus, which is sort of like Earth. And so we got all this huge Aquarius stellium with one of its rulers in Aquarius and the other one in Taurus, symbolic of Earth. So there's this tether tie connecting those two that's kind of sort of really funneling in a lot of the good stuff. And it's time for systems to change, honestly. Honestly. So let's read. I don't think I need to read the Weaver in Shadow. So, because the Weaver in the Shadow for me, like it started good, and I was like, yes, this is something that I want to do. But then what I talked about, the day before yesterday, as far as like, it would probably be the case that if I work in or focus on rare and ultra rare, apparently ultra rare diseases are a thing. I learned that today. Like I knew it, but they had someone talking about her daughter has an ultra rare disease, and I'm just like, ugh. um, and she was like, unfortunately, my daughter doesn't um, meet the criteria for any of the trials. And they also talked about how for some people, like clinical trials aren't their only hope, right? Before it's been legitimized, when they're still testing and collecting data and making sure it's an efficacious treatment option. Um, and then they were like, it's important that we be upfront and it's important that you be honest with the patients because it's a lot riding on that for them. And they were like, they're in an emotionally vulnerable state. And depending on the condition, they're in a hurry. And we shouldn't be taking advantage of that. And I was just like, yes. But there is a little part of me that's like, I feel like it invites a lot of loss into my life, potentially. And old shadow side is like, is that something that you really want to like set yourself up for? And maybe it's a good thing she ended on that quote of like finite disappointment, but infinite hope. And this is hangman energy because the hangman and the wild unknown is a bat, but that bat is upright. This one is in reverse and it's connected to the moon. I don't know. I mean, I'll talk a big game. I can back it up. I wouldn't let that fear stop me because eventually something like there may be some people that you can't help, but eventually, hopefully, you find something that does help people. And it's not to, and it reminds me of something like I saw on Facebook somebody shared about how older people complain about how easy kids have it nowadays. And it's like, well, shouldn't that be the case? And shouldn't you want generations coming after you to have it easier than you had it? And if your mindset and perspective is that people who come after you should suffer just as much as you did or do, then should you be having kids? Or should you be someone standing in a position of interfacing, interacting with the generations to come? And that is like, even like sometimes, I don't know, I don't personally say it too much, but people will be like, I didn't get an iPhone or a smartphone or a computer or this or that until I was this age. And now you see toddlers walking around with smart devices. And I mean, honestly, for myself personally, I'm not too bothered by it. Because there's a lot of like when I was young, I did Hooked on Phonics. My mom bought me some Hooked on Phonics books and she was like, here. And I kind of taught myself how to read. So by the time I was in kindergarten, I already knew how to read. And so in my mind, like if that was digitized, I don't see what the difference is too much. Like anything you can use in the proper way. You know what I mean? I don't know. Okay, I'm starting to like go all over the place now. But I just wanted to clarify that that's what happened yesterday. I was like, "Ooh, that's a lot of money, and the location is perfect, and telecommute is possible." But does it resonate with what it is that I want to do? Honestly, I don't know, and that's why I decided to give it a chance and to look into it a little bit. I was like, maybe there's a potential where it could, or because I also said yesterday that our paths lead us to acquiring a more unique, individualized skill set. And so maybe there's something that I would have to gain or acquire over there that I could use later. And I thought about that too. It's just, which is why I settled on I'm not going to make an immediate judgment right now. I'll try to get a little more information. So, ooh. So I'm not going to read the Shadow and the Reaver. And the cards that came out over here, when I was like, I'm going to clarify the Shadow and the Reaver. It's the King of Cups with the Nine of Swords and then the Prince of Pentacles. So I feel like the King of Cups, especially for me as I'm talking about this, the King of Cups is sort of having that intention. It's like your heart being in the right place. With the Prince of Pentacles, I feel like that's something that doesn't apparently or immediately fully line up with what it is that your heart is set on. And then the Nine of Swords is you kind of sort of trying to reconcile the two. And if nothing else, it's just a really interesting exercise in choice and personal values, I guess. Oh, I was like, "Ah." And honestly, like, also it's a reminder also too of where the bar can be set because it's more than I had come to expect. I think honestly, if I'm being real honest, going back to the Shadow and the Weaver, and I talked about this almost a year ago because I think it was 2/2/2020, where and it was like 5:55. My aunt sent me a message and she was like, "Hey, I want to work for Eli, or Eli Lilly was one of the companies that I wanted to work for." Um I've kind of expanded now beyond it, but if the opportunity presented itself and it made sense, I would still look into it, of course. But my aunt was like, I just had a flight home. You would never believe who I met. There's this person. I sat next to him. I got his email. He knows someone who used to work at the C suite at Eli Lilly. He said, send the resume and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh. But then I was triggered. I was triggered. It triggered all of my like, well, am I good enough for this? Like, I know that I'm capable, but my GPA doesn't reflect that. And my journey through college and academia doesn't reflect that. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just go ahead and send it because I'm not gonna stand in my own way. And if I get rejected or if they don't reply, that's fine. But at least I know that I'm not standing in my way. So honestly, right now, at some points, it's like on when it's on the low scale, then it's easier to be like, I'm better than this. And when it just comes to who are you? Oh, what is behind it? Oh, ooh, why this almost look like my birth chart, Loki? Uh, Trust in the Alchemist just came out. Trust in the Alchemist. It takes me back to fate and the Weaver energy and the role that we allow Shadow to play. Um, yeah, definitely, Mimi. And so now it's like I still know what I'm capable of. And like earlier, honestly, the salary that she listed was within the range that I wanted coming out earlier because I had a friend who he didn't take the job because or he didn't want to take the job because it didn't align with what he wanted in life. He kind of got his engineering degree because that's what he thought would make his parents and society proud and blah 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 whatever. And then he decided to go in a direction that suits himself more. But that was in the range that he was offered, and he told me, so I knew it was possible. But when I started doing research, it was like, well, I have to take into account that like I don't have this, and it did take me longer, and my GPA is a little lower. And it's like while all of those things are true, like while I don't have experience, while my GPA is lower than I'd prefer, I'm not any less capable. And I have plenty of references that can vouch for my capabilities. And I don't have to allow that to affect what it is that I'm like. I don't have to allow that to set the bar for myself. And maybe that's what that email yesterday can encourage me to do is to put the bar where I originally had it before life happened and I reduced it. Just like when medical school wasn't something that I wanted to do because I was like, well, my eyes are getting worse and I've already been in school for this long and blah, blah, blah. But then I got that email that was like, hey, and it's maybe more than a distractor or whatever. It's just a reminder of what it is that I had already set into the works for myself. I guess trust in the alchemist because it's like, and there are butterflies on here, and in this wheel with all these points. I promise, like I'm gonna show y'all my birth chart. You see this? Hold up, I'm gonna show it to y'all because I'm like that looked like my birth chart. I'll do it with and without the minor planets. When I put the minor planets in it, it really completes it. And I'm just like, oh snap! I can't zoom in on this. I'll take two. It's salty and it's sweet. Take five. Now with the minor bodies, it looks like this. Oh well, it's just really cluttered. Maybe not LOL, but I already spoke, so I gotta show y'all. I can't chicken out now. Let's see, hold up. But yeah, and like I process a lot. And like I said before, sometimes I process or I question my reality just as much as I question my dreams. And so, if nothing else, like I said, it is a reminder, just like last May, that although life has happened, and like I said yesterday, I am all the more, I'm better, I'm wiser, my skill set has expanded. Now I have like business experience ish, or I have a gateway into business experience. I have touch points in leadership that I wouldn't have had I not had an extended stay. My network has grown considerably, and there are things that I was able to prove to myself and to others that wouldn't necessarily have happened. So Yeah. Well, it ain't completely off. Not completely. Um, but so here's the alchemist card, right? And then there's my my birth chart. That's without the minor bodies, but with them, it looks like that. It's just like really chaotic. I got this big old hexagon because I have a completed like sextile, 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 sextile all the way around. Bunch of trines, oppositions, squares are my most prevalent aspect. So lots of lessons learned because squares are lessons apparently. Um, but anyway, what's at the bottom of the deck? I'm curious. The bottom of the deck is the Weaver. The bottom of the deck is the Weaver, as the Alchemist and Trust came out. So yeah, I don't know. And these look like moths. There are moths in this Trust card with a crystal. And moths have a similar life cycle to butterflies. They're just not as pretty. So I think in this alchemist, because an alchemist is a master of transmutation. And so there are certain properties, atomic properties, chemical properties that lead to alchemical properties that wait, Shay, uh that because of the month. That's societally we say that about months. And the months come out at night. So it could be the space of transformation that happens internally that's not necessarily observable on the outside. I like that better than, they're ugly. It's internal transformation. Trust that that's putting you in a space, and like the alchemical properties is like a knowledge of the metals or the properties of the metals themselves, as well as the chemistry to get from one point to the other. And it's an acquisition of tools and knowledge. And so trust that the transformation is giving you the tools and the knowledge that you need to turn your own self or your own story into whatever it is that you want it to be. And like I'm talking about me specifically, right? Or not specifically, but using me as an example, or basically reading for myself, I guess, as I'm talking, pulling cards. It's that I've only been enriched for my stay. It's not like I wasn't doing anything the whole time I was there. I was always doing more. So, yeah, yeah. Okay. So I've played with these. Connect to Heart is at the bottom. We got like two dogs on this. There's a little bit of a moon energy here because you see that, and then you see the two dogs, and the moon card is typically depicted with two dogs on it, or a dog and a wolf. I want to move over to the Tarot Apocalypse, is where the Hangman is at the bottom of the deck. Um, so yeah, the Hangman and the Ten of Wands. Oof. But he's carrying a pyramid. I feel like this Ten of Wands really carries that spiritual journey energy, especially because the pyramid is back there and he's like hauling the whole pyramid by himself. This is like spiritual strongman energy, because usually they took like a block to the pyramid, right? It's not like they hauled the entire pyramid, but he's doing it. And then the Hangman is here as like kind of sort of what he gets afterwards. It's just the strength to stand up to anything, I guess. To do within oneself what it would take an entire civilization to do together, collaboratively. And it's not to like inflate your head, it's just to come into a fulfillment of your potential. And if everyone were fulfilling their potentials, it wouldn't take so many. Look, he just fell out. He just fell out. Oh, look, there's the magician with the Hangman. Oh, this one look a little bloody or something. I'll read this magician because I'm like, what is that? But it's getting to the point where we can do that within ourselves because of our faith, our trust, our journey. And because, connect to the heart is still on the bottom of the oracle deck. So when you're connected to that space, it's like you work with the natural forces of love and light. But beyond just, the words, love and light. That's the high priestess, the magician. This is Jewish Merkaba mysticism. Oh, okay. Work. Ooh. And the Queen of Swords is behind this magician. This says, from the divine chaos come light and a word of power that created the universe. The smallest and the greatest parts of this world alike were pulled from nothingness into blazing life, manifested and given form. This was the path of magic, of will and energy directed into creation. This is the path you also can tread with words of power and the invocation of divine names. I spoke of divine names in a reading on my other channel, and there was this energy of like gods and goddesses, and how while we have a knowledge and awareness of them nowadays, they're not in power, specifically the Greco-Roman pantheon. They're not in power like they used to be. And while we have like Venus and Mars, or like we have planetary names, and while we refer to their stories when we sometimes when we come to astrological whatever uh, correspondence, but it's like the entity has lost itself, or not lost itself, but the entity itself is like, no, I don't want to say no longer existent, but it's not recognized as it was back in the Greco-Roman days in Greece and Rome, right? And it reminded me of the Heroes of Olympus, how the first series, Percy Jackson, you experience the Greek side, but then in the follow-up series where you meet the Roman demigods, you literally see, or when they would go to these gods, you would literally see them shift from the Greek personality to the Roman personality. And for some of them, like Mars and Aries, they're completely different. Because in Greece, like, that wasn't an empire. Like, Rome was an empire. So when it comes to the god of war, it makes sense that he's celebrated in Rome. And so Aries is like one of the big ones. But in Greece, where it was more philosophical and it was more about art, he wasn't as celebrated. He was seen as more of a nuisance. And so, no, Mars is Roman. So Aries isn't that great. But Mars in Rome is like glory to the empire, right? Now, some of them stayed fairly consistent, the more consistencies there were between the different two. But divine names, it came up in that video. And I was like, oh, wait. Because it's a theme that carries through at least a few different things. It's probably based and rooted in something. I don't know. Maybe pagan. I don't know. I don't know a lot of stuff. Um, but it was like, if you know the true name of something, then you hold power over it. And was it Aragon, maybe? I wanted to read Aragon. It was a big book. I got I used to cheat on Accelerated Reader. Like when I got into middle school, I started cheating. I would go to the library and get an audiobook and just listen to it. Now, is it cheating? Like, I still listen to the book instead of reading the book, but I got an audiobook for Aragon. I think I actually did finish the first one. And I think they had something like divine names in that one too, where if you know the name of something, you can control it and you have power over it. But in that, it was like rediscovering our own divine names so we can have more control and power over ourselves to navigate the world. I just saw 4444, to navigate the world in a sense that's truer to who we are, rather than being so muddied and distorted by what society expects and what family expects and what friends expect, and falling into whatever image that it's like a double-sided projector. Like it projects that image in front of us, and then we try to project ourselves into that image, and it's two projections trying to interface and interact with each other. So expect some distortion in the appearance. But anyway, back into this. That was a minute ago too. I should get those cards. Because what came out is an ancient thing, an ancient word that stirs ancient things to life, whispered. And it's like those who have ears to hear will hear it. If you're too noisy, you'll miss it. Anyway, back to this. Sorry. Manifest and given form. This was the path of magic, of will and energy directed into creation. This is the path you also can tread with words of power and the invocation of divine names. Follow my mysteries, and I will show you how to draw down the very angels and manifest their wisdom within yourself. I will show you how to control the heavens and the earth, the sun and the sea. I will give you dominion over all the things before you. When I ascend towards the divine, it descend towards me. At the point of meeting the universe, at the point of meeting the universe is created. Oh, when I ascend, excuse me, I'm gonna have to get some water. Yeah, I know. In the Nun, I think in the Nun they had to find out the name of that one thing, like Rumpelstiltskin. Um, there was another movie that was something like that. Like it's a common theme. Um, More common. I feel like it's something that we don't necessarily. It's super common, but I don't know if I've necessarily like have like seen it sort of talked about in the sense where it pulls it all together. Maybe. When I ascend towards the divine, it descends towards me. At the point of meeting, the universe is recreated. In me, divine fire is transformed into the waters that nourish the earth. In my actions, my will and energy are directed towards a goal. My mysteries are those of focus and will, active creation and manifestation. Walk my roads, and I shall show you your nature as a conduit of the divine, that you may project your will into the world and make it anew with each word you speak. And I mean, I guess that ties back into when I was saying that I'm not mirroring this world will mirror me. And this is Piscean energy. I'm just let me stop. But the hangman is here. I feel like the hangman with that kind of magician, it speaks of multiple things. What's this? Oh, the Prince of Cups. Oh, that's interesting. This reminds me of Vulcan, which is interesting again. So I'm watching a show. I'm back into anime and video games because I can see now. um, and there's a character. Last night I just made it to the episode, and he has like you see these rings around his arms. He has those around to like his neck, his arms, and it's this energy. And they call him Vulcan after the Roman god of the fire and the forge. Hephaestus is his Greek equivalent. And Hephaestus is the one who created Pandora. And then all of the gods gave her a gift to animate her. And it's the fire and the forge. And then this magician right here is about creation. And it mentions turning the divine fires into the water that will nourish the earth. Um, But in this, and look, there's also fire at the bottom, so I guess we shouldn't be surprised. But this was an energy of, I think, like a Sundance. So it was about catching a vision. I'll just read it. I love this deck. I love these decks I'm getting. Oh, snap. Oh, I don't even know where Vulcan is. That would make sense. I wonder where esoteric astrology got Vulcan. I've been slipping. I probably would have looked at that a long time ago. Like, where Vulcan at? Trying to make something happen. There's justice. Here's the hangman. Here we go. This is the sun dance of the North American Plains nations. To every soul there is a storm, bringing clouds and rain. Night comes like a bride to her lover and surrounds the spirit in suffering. Give in, seeker. Become the bridegroom of your agony and let the rain purify you. This is the mystery of the ascetic, who through withdrawal from the sacred comes closer to it. These are the roads of the sacrifice that creates the world, the first offering to the gods of blood spilled on the earth. In your pain, you must know that you too are a sacrifice. Your power, your energy, yourself might recreate that primeval act and rebuild the universe around you. Both of these speak of rebuilding or recreating the universe. Interesting. This one, it occurs between your ascending self and the descending divine, where the divine meets you and recreates the universe. This one I'm still reading. Um, Follow my dance, and I shall show you, and I shall show to you the ways of suffering. For I am the hanged one and the holy one, the scapegoat and the tortured. It is my cries of pain that are the four winds and the sound of the storm, my tears that flow as streams in rain, replenishing the world, my blood that falls to nourish and revitalize all creatures of the earth. Let your power be given up to that which calls to you. In becoming small, you become great. After your agony, you will know only joy in the ecstasy of divine light. Yet remember, mystic, that you can only give as much, sorry, yet remember, mystic, that you can only give as an offering that which is your own, yourself. Ooh. And then let's connect to the heart. Why not? I'll read it. Connect to heart. At the bottom of the deck, I smell bacon. Ray 1, will, purpose, signs, Aries, Leo, Capricorn planets. Wow, Vulcan and Pluto. I'm gonna have to Google that. Where Vulcan is? Volcano. Connect to heart is 78. Water, of course. It is no surprise that this is a water called compassion. Okay. Where's there's trust. So trust is water. Connect to heart. Here we go. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. Connect to heart. This card asks you to connect to the heart space. This is a place of bravery, integration, vulnerability, and compassion. This may mean pushing past any fear you may have and opening up to true connection. This may mean finding forgiveness or empathy. This may mean softening. Most of us have layers of defense mechanisms around our heart that prevent us from being present, from receiving love, from giving love. This card asks you to examine what armor you can let go of and where you can nurture yourself in this space. Dog. We can call upon dog as a teacher of vulnerability and unconditional love. When dogs are bonding to their human, it is typically a rather quick process. Even those that have significant trauma can sense when they are safe and will open up to their companions. Small acts like rolling onto their back to expose their belly is a major act of trust, as they are exposing their most vulnerable parts to you. In general, dogs move through life constantly looking for love and connection. They are an ally to call upon when you have had painful experiences that have closed you off to life and to other people. Dog will teach you how to open up and allow love in when you are overwhelmed with fear. Hawthorn. Hawthorn has incredibly potent medicine for the heart. It is used to support chest pain, irregular heartbeat, congestive heart failure, blood pressure, hardening of arteries, and cholesterol. It supports us in the same way energetically, for times when our heart has hardened or we have become cynical. Hawthorn supports us as we soften and open up to life and love after heartbreak. It is also supportive for us if we need a gentle opening to feelings we have locked away and repressed. Rose quartz. Rose quartz is the ultimate heartstone. It supports us in love for ourselves, love for others, for life, family, friends, our work, our community, our environment, etc. If we have felt cold and shut down, rose quartz can activate our heart and awaken it to all that there is to love in our life. If we have anger and resentment, rose quartz can gently wash it away. Call on rose quartz if you need a guide as you do any heart work. So I feel like this is speaking, like there's something in here and this hanged one that it's like, it's time for us to sacrifice our hurt and it's time for us to sacrifice our pain because those are the things that keep us from, getting all that we can create and experience. And maybe also to sacrifice disappointment, any suffering, and to connect to the heart. Under connect to the heart is compassion. Compassion for yourself first can lead you to having compassion for others. And if you know how to be compassionate for others, then turn that inwards and, you know, give some compassion to yourself because you deserve it. All right. So it's time for a final message. It's almost been an hour. An hour. You lost a rose quartz necklace that Myra gave you like 3 months ago, and you found it a week ago. Aw. I was looking at my rose quartz with one of my friends the other day. I was looking at my crystal. That's when I noticed that my jasper was warm and it had some streaks in it. Uh, I was like, I feel like my rose quartz is starting to turn too. It's getting like clearer or something. I don't know. More clear? Who knows? Final message from the Tarot Apocalypse. Let's make it a good one. There's a whole world that lies on the other side of fear, and you get to choose. So I was talking to one of my friends one day. And it's like every now and then it's just like the burden of choice, or because like I'm not necessarily good at like open-ended questions or making choices, or I wasn't. And it's like I can see the positives in anything, and it's not a bad thing, but if you can find a positive in anything, then it's like, well, maybe I could do this, even though it's not what I wanted to do. It would put me in a position to be able to support, myself and folks I care about. To, I don't know. Who knows? It's snowing again today. I'm just trying to get to the stove, but it's so cold and it's snow every day, like in the middle of winter or something. Your headache is caused from something emotional. Oh, something trying to be released. Perhaps, mayhaps, potentially. Oh, gosh. I'll take these two because they flipped over. And then I'll save these. Okay. Goodness. I lose cards now. Ooh, this is interesting. We have a Temperance of Wands energy. You need to be journaling again. He was working on your brow again last night. Is that when he noticed that it was emotionally linked? And I just got a journal. I'm about to start. Well, now that I can like see what I'm writing and read what I'm writing, um, I might get a journal to, I don't know. I want to do some like spiritual stuff, but maybe not. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. But yes. So we have a Temperance of Wands between, well, oh, I did so well. I saved all those cards from hitting the floor. And then the Six of Wands. Oh, just kidding. It's Six of Pentacles and the Eight of Wands with the Two of Swords behind it. Two of Swords with this chessboard. That's choices. It's decision making. More than anything, trying to map out your next best move. So there is a Lovers of Pentacles and it's either a Strength of Wands or a Justice of Wands. And this deck it's Strength, I believe, because Justice is 11. Six of Pentacles, Eight of Wands. I said it was a Temperance of Wands. Temperance of Wands is an energy. It's almost like if I'm going to do this, like it's a payoff or doing the right things at the right time to the right degree for the right reasons. But the Six of Pentacles, was this at the bottom of the deck? Yeah, the Eight of Wands was at the bottom of the deck. Okay, let's put that back. These are the two cards that came out. So it's technically a Hermit of Wands between the Queen of Wands and the Eight of Wands with the Six of Pentacles. The Queen of Wands in this deck is Hathor, and in some ways also Sekhmet. And there's this energy with Hathor. She gets her association with wine because she turned into Sekhmet, and the only way to get her to turn back into Hathor was for her to get intoxicated. So now it's like she carries this energy of needing to be, she can carry an energy of almost needing to be constantly under the influence just to keep herself in whatever mental space that she wants to be in. But I feel like with this Six of Pentacles, this it brings a reciprocating energy to the table. And so going back to that Temperance of Wands, it's like it affects your ability to do what it is that you want to do because of what you're doing to put you in the state to do it. And there's this energy of like if you could rebalance yourself, if you could heal yourself and alchemize whatever wounds that would trigger you to um, self medicate or to cope in whatever ways you self medicate and cope that aren't necessarily productive, then it's like it frees up energy for you to put towards progressing into moving forward. And especially coming off of the Hanged one with the message of like, feeling your pain and your agony and sacrificing it to the point where you're able to experience joy thereafter. And it's less conditional joy. It's joy that you're able to feel without, all the ways that you cope through whatever you're coping through because there's no longer a need. And then with the Eight of Wands and the Two of Swords, with the Princess of Wands behind it, Princess of Wands is Isis energy. Um, it's like when I said this was like your decision making process or your ability to make decisions, your ability to make decisions is impaired if you have to be constantly inebriated to make sure that you're in a Hathorian energy rather than a Sekhmet energy. And it's like it's limiting your options. And you would be able to expand much further, much faster if you release that dependency. And it's not necessarily going to be easy, but it's almost like with the amount of burden it would take for you to get over that, that's the amount of release you would have after you've dealt with it. I don't know. It's a reciprocating energy, but it's like it may not necessarily be happening in the way that you would expect. I don't think I've read the Six of Pentacles in this deck. Let me look at it for a second. So it looks like we got some Buddha in the back. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 singing bowls, maybe. One of these are in hand. There's actually 6 because he's holding one of them. I feel like in general, these two, it's being in a space of personal power. And you can see like him with that ball with the Buddha behind him. It's like when you're centered, grounded, and balanced, when you create that foundation within yourself, it's like your experience is based upon your foundation. So if you don't do anything to improve your foundation, then you're not really doing anything to improve your experience. And it feels like an energy of increasing the tension on a certain polarity, because it's like you are working to experience better and better, but without addressing the things within you that bring you down, then that's just like even higher that you drop from when you experience a low. And I personally believe it's possible to actually heal from things with relatively minimal scarring and to do better. I don't think we as a collective approach it in a way that makes that an actual option or it makes that a reality. I think more often than not, we just find different ways to mask it. And if you're only masking it, eventually you're going to have to change the bandages, right? And so when it's exposed, then it's exposed. And if you don't expose it to change the bandages, then it gets all nasty and it doesn't do what it's in effect to do, or what it's not effective, right? Whatever. I think some of our limitations are a little bit self-imposed because of what we do for the sake of convenience and what we don't do for the sake of not being inconvenienced. And if that's never been more apparent, it's pretty apparent now. Through lack of wanting to be inconvenienced, we cause ourselves to suffer more than we need to. So, final message from this dude. Get wild. Oh, snap. Shadow. Oof. Ooh, with the sage, though. All right. So, I love this deck. I love both of these. Ooh, there's strength. I feel like I've gotten some decks lately that, like, really just do it. I mean, I guess any deck can do that, honestly. But still, the butts are really nice things. So. Work together just popped into my mind, and what we're capable of when we work together. This is a lot of cards. I'm gonna note these. I'm not gonna read all these from the book. Bottom of the deck is Underworld. This reminds me of the card that had the Wheel of Fortune in it, because it has that same thing at the top, but those hands like tied up by string and thorns. So restricted. Very restricted. The cards that came out are Compassion, Get Wild, Dare to Dream, and Love. Compassion, Get Wild, Dare to Dream, and Love, while Underworld is at the bottom of the deck, carrying an energy of like that's how we escape. It's like a pomegranate energy. It's like Rihanna, we found love in a hopeless place type of energy. In a space where things should only decay and die, there would be those that grow. And then it's like once you begin to grow, you're rejected from that space. Or you rejected and ejected from that space. Like something that carries an energy of life has no place in the underworld. And it reminds me of sometimes I'll get some people asking me something. And what I've noticed in my own personal life is sometimes I'll begin to experience tension in places that I've outgrown. And it's like things will just start falling apart. won't be able to get on the same page. People are just getting like annoyed and frustrated with each other for seemingly no reason. Maybe it wasn't always like that, but it's like a signal. It's like, okay, it's time for you to like move beyond this, and it'll continue to put tension and pressure on you until you do that. Maybe there's something that needs to be done. And that's what that reminds me of, like with compassion, get wild, dare to dream, and love, with the underworld at the bottom of the deck. Those are all things rejected from or by the underworld. So as you hold more of those, it's like it naturally elevates you. I mean, there's still an element of choice though, right? So, and it's not necessarily immediate, but it's like when you look for it, the exit appears. It reminds me of no, that's why Deguchi popped into my mind. Um, so there's this one show I'm watching where it's the magic show, and there's a magician who uses dream magic. So she pulls people into her dream world where she has complete and total control over everything, anything, and it's like things are physical in that world. It's not like they're imaginary. And there was this one girl who she was like really smart, but she was like, okay, so anything that she thinks of pops into this world. So she was like, Deguchi, Deguchi, Deguchi. And Deguchi is Japanese for exit. It's anime. And so she was like, exit, 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 exit. And then all these doors started popping up everywhere. And she was like, oh, crap. And she's like, yeah. Like, if someone says something, you can't help but think of it. And so all the doors popped up, but then, she had to hurry up and put locks on all the doors. And then there was a character who came later, and he tried to do the same thing, but she was like, oh, did you think that would work again? No. But that's what that energy, it's like it elevates us out of that situation. But if we can't perceive of it, oh, I like this. If we can't perceive of it, if we can't think of it, if we can't visualize it, it's never, like, it's not made real. And there are things that we can tell ourselves, but we have to actually believe it. Right? It's just like if you said something to her that she had no concept of understanding, then nothing would happen. It's not what you know, it's what she knows. And there's this separation in the self between us and our manifestive power and capabilities, where there are things that we will say, there are affirmations that we'll continue to make, but they won't have any weight or substance or any power behind it. It's like empty words. Words of power with the divine words, like emphasis on power. It's not just words. And a lot of things that a lot of people say, it's like empty words, empty promises. Old Patrick wasn't necessarily the best at keeping promises, especially if you ask me to do something, because then, I get lazy or I'll forget. So, like, if you promise, like, me to, like, in the moment do something, like, yeah. But if you're like, hey, like, can you do this like a week from now? And if I forget, I'll be like, oh, I forgot. Sorry. That's why I need to like use my calendar app on my phone so I don't forget. It's like, you forgot to pay this for like 5 months in a row. It's like, well, I thought I paid it. Sorry. Um, and I've talked about words that we speak that don't have power before. Because that power, it comes from that spark of the divine within us. And words and language, it's like a vocalization of intention. And it's literally a frequency tied to an intention. And sometimes I think we can get a little sucked into word games, but it's like if the intention is there, then the message will come across in some ways. So yeah, when you get into the position of, it's like you have to actually see yourself out of it. That's what I was talking about. So like I mentioned with the email in like last May and the one that I got yesterday, it's like reminding me where the bar was initially set. It's getting me to see something directed at me, meaning that it's getting me to see that it's still for me. And in me seeing that it's for me, I can now manifest it for myself with a lot less resistance, because it's like, oh, but I don't actually see it happening. Like, I don't think this, I don't think that. It's all about perspective. A lot of things. I don't want to say everything is about perspective, but in a certain way it is. Final card, please. Like one or two, two at the most, but like one would be perfect. Watch it be like the Weaver. We are those in control of their own fates. Excuse me. Or the Alchemists. The Alchemist is like the Weaver, but the Alchemist actually has to do work. The Weaver does work too, but I don't keep going until one or two at the most pops out. There we go. Ooh, who is this? Paradox. That's what life is about. Life is learning how to accept and navigate paradox, honestly. Bottom of the deck is the Wildling with the Two of Swords on it. Oh, it has little like wolf head pommel stones. I think that's the name of that thing. At the bottom it's got like little wolves. And I talked about how we've misunderstood wolf social dynamics and we've turned it into something that it's not. And we do a lot of that, but it's fine. It's not about that. It's about paradox. I love paradox. I don't love it, love it. It's just, it makes everything so unnecessarily complex. And that's me. It's not that deep. It's like, calm down. It ain't even that deep. If I had a penny for every time I've heard it's not that deep, I would have enough to at least buy me a McChicken at McDonald's that I know I shouldn't be eating anyway. Um, let's see. I lost the page number. 118? 103 is Paradox. It's kind of in alphabetical order within this, I think. It actually is. O P I P I O P I E I O P I. Wait, where is it? Wow, the paradox. There it is. I couldn't even open to the page. Paradox. This card is a reminder that we can hold two extremes at the same time. Sometimes we focus on things, whether internal or external, and see them as one sided. But to hold the paradox within us requires strength. To see our most brilliant qualities and our most ugly. To acknowledge that they both live within us is a gateway to growth. Carl Jung said the paradox is one of our most valuable spiritual possessions. And for anyone who does shadow work, they know this to be true. But this can also be difficult for many people. If we have been raised in a rigid environment where things are viewed as black and white, it may be hard for us to accept our flaws, let alone love them. One of the best ways to slowly enter a relationship with our internal paradox is to remind ourselves that we did not create these things within us. We inherited them. It does not define us, and yet we are responsible for it. To work more deeply with paradox, as you witness yourself throughout the day, identify what types of thoughts you have more of, positive or negative. From there, find the polar extreme. For example, maybe you thought, I am so freaking lazy. Acknowledge a couple things that make that true. Then find the polar opposite, i.e., hardworking, and acknowledge a few things or experiences that prove that you are hardworking. So it's really about integrating into the energy of paradox, learning paradox. Like, I personally think in my own little brand flavor corner sector of spirituality, I don't know. It's like the way we talk about duality as if it's something that ceases to exist after the 3D, and that's not true. Like, duality runs very, very, very high up the spectrum. Duality is one of the first things that was created. God said, "Let there be light," and then there was light, and there was not light. And the day and the evening was the first day, or whatever. And it's like, we look at angelic energies as those that are extremely high vibrational or very high up the frequency chain, but those are polarized, especially in the way that we typically view them as forces of good or forces of light, and then they have their equivalent, which are like demons or demonic or less than fallen angels. There's angels and then the fallen angels. That's pretty high up. Like, unless we're gonna start seeing angels in like the 4D or the 5D or whatever, like duality, it runs pretty high. And it's about learning to navigate paradox more than it is about, and like, I personally think that oneness from our perspective is learning to navigate and accept paradox, because oneness being the oneness that we kind of sort of talk about, it only exists in that form when everything is one and it is not separate. It's like a Malkuthian Yasad energy. Oh my gosh, A Wrinkle in Time. It's just like that. uh in some ways. But yeah, I mean, I have Native American ancestry, so it's a potential. What's really interesting though is a while ago I saw stuff about the Lemurians and I was like, Lemuria, like that resonates for me. And then I had my ancestry done, and it turns out I have a little bit of Austronesian DNA. And so I just Googled like Austronesia and Lemuria, and it's like theoretically, not theoretically, but around the same area of the world. And I don't know why. I have Southeast Asian DNA. I don't know where it comes from. It's not like, I know where the Irish comes from. I know where the Native American comes from. I can assume, the other European things like the Scandinavian, even though Scandinavian was interesting. I think like Portuguese or Spanish popped up, but there's a nice little bit. It's possible. Also, I'm a yellow solar warrior, born in the year of the blue cosmic storm. So I'm just out there floating. And those who have ears to hear will hear, but eventually all things shall come to pass as they shall come to pass. I guess. Bottom of the deck is the Wildling. I actually wanted to read that one too, because I've never gotten it before. So I just got this deck. Let's see what a Wildling is. Copyright 2020. What? That was last year. The Wildling, page 118, Ether. 118. Sorry. The Wildling. Pulling the Wildling card indicates a time to connect to the most primal parts of yourself. This may mean you need to detach a bit from people around you so you can hear the whispers of your deepest knowing without the influence of others. When I said an ancient word that stirs ancient things to life, whispered, and some those who have ears to hear will hear, but some may not hear it because other things is too loud. Okay. The wildling is raw, empowered, and independent. Many people are intimidated by them because they need little from others and prioritize radical freedom, which can be unsettling, as most of society operates within unspoken expectations and contracts. The wildling burns the contract and heads into the woods. There's that forest energy. Wildling comes to us as an ally when we need to break free of the systems that limit us. The wildling within us remembers a time where we lived with the land, when we walked barefoot, when our lives are in alignment with the natural world. Wildling is a call for remembrance. A good way to invoke Wildling is to dive deeper into our body and hear what it needs from us on our most primal level. A balanced Wildling prioritizes freedom but remains grounded. They possess an instinct that may not make sense to others but never leads them astray. They are present to their own emotions and needs and will spend time on their personal development. An unbalanced wildling is in a state of perpetual chaos. They are avoidant and often use the external for a band-aid of their internal dis-ease, which often means they are constantly moving on to the next thing. What they move on to never ends up being what they hoped for. So I guess there's a little question of, but then again, that goes back to the hanged one, which was acknowledging your own pain and your agony and sacrificing that in some way to experience joy. It goes back to the Queen of Wands with the Six of Pentacles and the Eight of Wands and Two of Swords at the bottom, which was like the need to self medicate because of what it is that we're not open to seeing or experiencing. And honestly, it came out at one point. I don't remember. I don't remember the full context, but it came up a few times. Because I remember I was looking at the Queen of Cups and the High Priestess one time, and it's like you're the Queen of Cups, the High Priestess is Spirit, and there are things that Spirit is trying to navigate you towards, or there are certain things that it's trying to get you to see, but you're not seeing it. But when things get that subtle, it's so highly contextual. And so it's like you have to find the right context for the thing. It's like if someone says a word to you that you don't know, but they don't use it in a sentence, or it's not connected to anything else for you to like guess at what it means, even if you guess incorrectly, there's just like absolutely no context at all. Like if I just said pneumomicrospore silicovolcanoconiosis, like what's that? That's supposedly one of the longest words. Maybe that's why I dreamed about Storm last night. That was so weird. I dreamed about another dude from like middle school, high school. His name is Storm. And we were like roommates or something. I've actually dreamed about Storm before. And I think we were roommates in that dream too. Um, but he would do Storm was so interesting to me. He was like the most popular kid, or he stood at the top of the circle of popularity in my age range, within my grade and maybe the grade below and above, potentially. And I had no idea that he existed until I got in the honors classes, and that's where some of the more fortunates were, I guess, because I like they got money, and everyone wanted him to like them. Wanted, yeah, and I'm like, personally, I don't get it. Like he was cool, and like he was like into anime and stuff, and so like we talked about Naruto a few times. There was this one girl we had homeroom together, maybe in the seventh or eighth grade, and every time she would come into the building, he would like scream Gasolina at her, like the song Gasolina. And then one day he was like, I gotta go to the bathroom. Like, make sure you say Gasolina to the Gasolina girl or something. I don't remember if I did it or not. He was like really cool in like a low key way. And I don't know if I experienced a different side of him because I wasn't extremely interested in like trying to be up under him. Um, But I remember one of my other friends from elementary school who was sort of always the outcast. One day I talked to him because he was out of state and then he had to come back. And he was like, I don't want to go back because there's like so much misery lives there. And I'm like, I knew what he was talking about. But then he was like, yeah, like people were always making fun of me and like I never fit in and stuff like this. But me, as his whole friend, I'm like, in my mind, I guess I just didn't understand why, like, he had someone in me who would actually be his friend, who would accept him for who he is. But instead, like a lot of people do, he tried to be in with like the popular kids where Storm was. And in my mind, I'm just like I've never really been the type to be motivated by popularity or anything like that. Like I was the kid that like even now, like I do stuff alone and I don't mind doing stuff alone. Like it was what around my birthday or one day I wanted to see the house with the clock in its walls. And so I went to the movie theater and I saw it by myself and I had a good time. Um for the most part, I mean it was pretty dark, so I'm gonna watch it now to see if now that my eyes are better, I can actually tell what's going on in the movie. But like if I'm sitting by myself or eating by myself or whatever, like I don't mind. And I've never really been the type of person to seek validation from anybody or to really need it or to feel like I need it because there are things that I treasure within myself and there are things that I strive for within myself to be. Some of those things, like I would like to be compassionate and patient. Well, not patient, compassionate and understanding. I can be a little bit impatient, but when it comes to situations where like compassion is required, I find myself naturally being a lot more patient than I am outside of that. Being open minded and like listening, having a willingness to at least listen. Like those are things that I sort of value about myself. So I'm not looking for like a body type or some clothes or technology or a watch or like the people that I surround myself with to provide any validation because I don't I don't know I just don't like my focus is in other places. So, but like I understand that it's a thing that people do, but in my mind it's like you cause yourself to suffer by continuously trying to put yourself in a position that was obviously not welcoming to you. So why do you continue to subject yourself to that feeling of isolation when you literally have a friend that you never like I'm in my mind it's just like, well, you could have saved yourself a lot of heartache and pain just by going for the people who already see it for you. But that's what people do. So like it's not an isolated thing and I know that. But anyway, sometimes I think that's where I heard it like Storm would just say like, "Oh, this is the longest word" or whatever. Context, blah blah blah. Just like how I'm putting my own experiences into context with this email, it's reminding me of the things that I used to want where the bar used to be set and how I've lowered it. Well, it's time to raise the bar back and to operate from the space of that raised bar because I've only been enriched by what a lot of people could see as a detour. That kind of was a detour, but again, it's provided me with experiences that I would have been otherwise like I wouldn't have had. So, yes, you believe you're supposed to be in some type of spotlight, which you really don't want, but it also feels like it's required. I think that's why you never took leaps of faith towards your talent. Everything you're interested in pushes you to the front. I can see that. That like I like to play like low key and to not say anything whenever I notice that something is up. Cause even though I'm like as dense as a brick sometimes, and even though I'm not the most spatially aware, I'm observant in some ways when it comes to things that I'm just like, I think what I noticed the most is how ill prepared people are whenever they enter a certain space. And for me, it's like, okay, this is what you're showing me. From what you're showing me, it looks like you are lacking in this area. For where you're going, there are many cases and scenarios in which this is going to happen. And I can see already that this isn't something that you engage with well. I know that those things are pretty much an inevitability. And so I foresee this falling apart. And then it happens. Now, should I say something to be like, hey, like, just a heads up, like, it's likely that you're going to come across this, 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 and this. And I ain't trying to be whatever, but it looks like this may not be something that you handle well. So before you get full into that, you may want to start addressing it to minimize whatever. And like, I was working, I'm working with some people who do not like to make decisions. And in my mind, it's like, if you don't want to be the spotlight, if you don't want to have to talk to people, if you can't be decisive, or if you can't, like, not be assertive, but if you can't make your point known, why are you taking a leadership position? And then she would like deflect responsibilities onto us. But if we follow proper channels and protocols, they would go back up to her because that's what she gets paid for. And then one day a situation happened. She sent somebody to go take care of it who shouldn't take care of it. And maybe I could have just told her, but see, she already like that. I had been a supervisor before. I chose to step down in the next year because I had other plans, honestly. But so I didn't want to, like, as someone that she supervised, try to tell her how to do her job, and I didn't want to come across as like I've done this before, so listen to me. And so I waited for one of my coworkers to come, who I worked with the previous summer. She was also a supervisor, and I was like, so this thing is going down, and she hasn't even called this up because this is huge. Like, whenever you're talking about the police, the ambulance, hospitals, anything like that, somebody with actual authority should know it's happening. And I'm like, she didn't even call it up. And then she was like, but I was like, don't, like, whatever, just like, can you ask her or like tell her to call it up? And then she asked her if she called it up. She was like, oh no, I didn't call it up because somebody else is over there handling it. And after that happened, I just knew. I was like, okay, so that's what we're working with. And then, like, they knew that we had an international group coming in the whole summer. They knew. Tell me why they didn't even do a quick Google Translate, like, frequently asked questions, because within the industry that we worked in, there are questions that you get all the time. It's like, to the point where we have things posted up in English. Well, you know that, like, English isn't their first language, so why wouldn't, in the months that you have to prepare for this, why wouldn't you already have, like, some of that up, rather than us just figuring it out in the moment and y'all being like, oh my gosh, like, we don't know what to do. This thing is happening that we've literally known about for months, but we never did anything. I'm just like, but I was like, you know what? It ain't my job. It ain't my job. It ain't for me to worry about. And I can't be like that necessarily anymore. Um, so Mimi, I would say just go for it, girl. If it's something that you like and if it's something that you want to do, it may not necessarily be easy. You may have some nerves or whatever, but if you know it's for you, then you just gotta go for it. Um, but yeah, that's what I got. I don't think there's anything else. Actually, I do kind of want to pull some more cards, but they're locked up. Just to see, because that message came out about words of power and divine names. Um, Oh, it's just interesting things are happening. I'm gonna stay in my own lane and mind my own business. That's all I got to say about that. Because it's not for me too, whatever. You at your job, you had all the answers and knew more than the supervisors and managers, but you didn't want the responsibility. Yeah, that's why I never did management at the office. Even though they had me in there like training people and stuff, I'm like, I don't want that responsibility. So just give me my little 5 cent raise every semester and I'm good. Hmm. Excuse me. You said you was going to step out your comfort zone. Amen. Going to do it. It's that time. If we want the things that we're wanting, it's going to require us to do things that we ain't never done, things that we weren't necessarily comfortable with. And I don't know. Like, I know I want a lot out of life. I know I'm asking for a lot, but that's why I'm as willing to do it as I am. So, all right. Well, it's been fun, Mimi. There was no structure really today. Um, if you enjoyed this, hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and share. Just kidding. But I hope you have a good whatever, whenever, and I hope you are acting in alignment to make that which you wish to experience your reality. Because, like my girl Amy said earlier, alignment equals catalysis. And let's ask Siri what catalysis means, because I don't want to mystify. I know in like biology what it means. Catalysis, catalyst, catalyze, they're all related. And it's a building up, right? Catabolism and anabolism. Anabolism is the breaking down. Hey Siri, define catalysis.
Catalysis means the acceleration of a chemical reaction by catalyst.
Yeah. It's the acceleration of a reaction by a catalyst. And chemical reactions are natural reactions. But the unnatural part of it is proximity, right? Like when you bring two things together, they're always going to react in that way. But the unnatural part of it may be that, like, naturally, they're not found within proximity of each other. If they were, it would just be like a constant, like, it'd be volcanic, basically. They're constantly reacting, constantly erupting. And so that's why, we put some space in between them. But it's a quickening, it's an acceleration, and it happens because of alignment, right? Oh, I should do a quickening. What would I do? What would I pull? Catalysis. That could be some magician energy, some temperance energy through the alchemist. I want a 3 for some reason. It could be the 3s in the SKT. I don't know. 8 of Wands. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm probably not going to do it. I might. I don't know. All right. I'll catch y'all later. Bye.